Sinn Féin representatives want to hold a referendum on the reunification of Northern Ireland with the Republic of Ireland by 2030. The Protestant DUP party describes this plan as unrealistic. But will people in Northern Ireland decide in the next few years whether they would rather be part of Ireland instead of Great Britain? Well, the head of the main Protestant party, the DUP, doesn't believe it. Geoffrey Donaldson of the Democratic Unionist Party, the DUP, don't understand politics in Northern Ireland, on Monday contradicted Sinn Féin President Mary Lou McDonald, who had promised a referendum by 2030. Mary Lou McDonald said a united Ireland was within reach, and I've already said jokingly on Irish radio, she must have the longest arm on the island of Ireland. That's what Donaldson told journalists in London, at least. Sinn Féin is the strongest party in the Catholic Republican camp and is aiming for reunification with EU member Ireland. Of course, MacDonald now has to emphasize the issue of Irish unity in order to satisfy her own supporters, said Donaldson. But let's look at reality. Sinn Féin is the largest party in Northern Ireland, but gets less than 30% of the vote. Mathematics wasn't my best subject at school, I admit that, but I also know that 20% is still a long way to a majority, said the DUP leader. Northern Ireland is at the moment a British part of the United Kingdom. There was a long civil war in the region between mostly Catholic supporters of Irish unification and mostly Protestant supporters of union with Great Britain. And the conflict lasted 3 decades and cost thousands of lives. In the last election for the regional parliament in 2022, Sinn Féin was indeed elected as the strongest force for the first time. Sinn Féin was previously seen as the political arm of the militant organization IRA, which fought for the unification of the two parts of Ireland through armed violence and terrorist attacks. With Vice President Michelle O'Neill, a Sinn Féin politician has recently headed the government in Northern Ireland for the very first time. However, she must govern in accordance with the 1998 peace agreement with the DUP, which provides the same deputy head of government. But also the Northern Ireland Assembly's new Stormont Break Committee will have scope to assess the impact of Northern Ireland being left in regulatory limbo if it diverges from both EU and UK laws. Members of the Windsor Framework Democratic Scrutiny Committee were told that their work will involve assessing the consequences of applying a new or replacement EU law in Northern Ireland and also the potential ramifications of not applying it. Under post-Brexit trading rules, aspects of EU law still indeed apply in Northern Ireland. The Windsor Framework on the trading arrangements includes a democratic oversight function for Stormont's Assembly, designed to give MLAs a voice in respect of proposed changes to European laws. The Stormont Break is a mechanism that allows a minimum of 30 MLAs to refer a proposed law change to the UK government. The government would then make an assessment of the proposed changes on Northern Ireland and could ultimately veto its application in the north. The Assembly Committee has been established as part of the scrutiny function, and its tasks will be to examine evidence in relation to potential changes in EU regulations and how they would affect Northern Ireland. At the committee's inaugural meeting last week Thursday, an official told members that the issue of divergence may arise. Divergence would emerge when the application of a new EU regulation was vetoed in Northern Ireland, leaving the existing EU law in place while the Union applies the new version. However, if the UK government also then diverged Britain from the old EU law, there would be trivergence, as Northern Ireland would be the only place where the old rules still applied. Members were told that the possibility of trivergence was not covered in the regulations that established the committee as part of the democratic scrutiny element of the Windsor Framework. However, the official said it was within the gift of the committee to examine the implications of applying a new or replacement EU Act in Northern Ireland and not applying it. DUP MLA Joanne Bunting had asked the official to clarify the committee's power in respect of that situation. And the official said, "So there's in theory this potential, and academics have done quite a bit of work on it, for there to be dual divergence or trivergence where Northern Ireland finds itself in a position where the regulations that apply here only apply here and neither apply in Great Britain nor in the EU." Ms. Bunting suggested that in such a scenario, the UK government would take action to ensure Northern Ireland was not negatively impacted. In the example of trivergence, in circumstances where the brake is successfully pulled, at that point, then surely the UK government or the NI Assembly can legislate to make sure that everything is fine in Northern Ireland. That's at least what she asked. The official said that even when the brake was applied, members of the Stormont Assembly could still vote via an applicability motion that the new or replacement law should be applied in Northern Ireland. And the Sinn Féin member Emma Sheeran suggested the committee might be faced with choosing the least worst option. In that sort of scenario, it may be the case that we decide something does have significant or that it does not significantly impact or change, but we decide to allow that to proceed and not to apply the brake because the alternative would be worse in that we would be leaving ourselves behind or something. And Alliance MLA Patrick Brown suggested the committee ask academics who have researched divergence to present evidence to members. "We are, as I'm understanding it, to a degree in uncharted territory here," he said, and he's quite right about that. I'm not sure if there are other regions or areas that are subject to a similar issue of divergence. No, they are not. Northern Ireland is absolutely unique. And Ulster Unionist Committee member Steve Aiken said it would be important to clearly set out the committee's function in respect of assessing any change in EU law, so to minimize the potential for a future legal challenge. We need to actually define quite clearly what the concept of trivergent means, he says. Because, as has already been pointed out by Emma, there might be cases where we decide that it is potentially a breach, but because of the impact that it's likely to be, we decide not to action on it. Or we might do exactly the opposite, he said. And it's quite an interesting part. But also Northern Ireland's new Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs Minister, Andrew Muir, may only be 3 days in the job, but he has already been warned that the agriculture sector is under extreme financial pressure, so they've got more problems than just trivergence. According to the president of the Ulster Farmers Union, David Brown, the return of a minister to the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, the DERA, is welcome. I mean, there wasn't one for 2 years. He said, Andrew Muir takes on the agriculture brief at a time when the industry is under extreme financial pressure. Agriculture is the backbone of the Northern Ireland economy, and it is vital that Minister Muir supports local food security to help safeguard Northern Ireland's agri-industry. In his first week in office, the new minister has said that his immediate focus will be on working across government and with other partners to find appropriate responses to the immediate environmental and agricultural challenges they face. And he also stressed that he sees the agri-sector as being of paramount importance to their economy, their food security, and of course will be critical in helping them achieve their environmental obligations. The UFU president is now urging the minister to roll out future direct farm support measures and take decisions on wildlife intervention in a TB eradication program. Considerable uncertainty lies ahead for our industry, and the new minister has plenty of challenges on his plate, he said. We look forward to meeting with Minister Muir and his executive ministerial colleagues to make decisions ensuring pressing and strategic issues are addressed, and that as quickly as possible, to safeguard Northern Ireland's family farms and agribusinesses, as he said. So after 2 years of no one being in charge there, except from London directly, there is a lot of work to do and a lot of questions still to be answered. Not only asked, but also answered. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.